legalistic meaning that the article's drafters may have intended. Unsurprisingly, the article became widely known as the War Guilt Clause. The Kriegsschuldfrage, the war guilt question, then became a mobilizing issue in the interwar German politics of treaty revision and right-wing opposition to the Weimar Republic. In turn, the fateful legacy of German resentment fueled historical interest in the question of whether Germans were right to feel aggrieved at having the blame for the war laid at their door, and prompted inquiries as to whether the belligerence of Nazi Germany in the 1930s was continuous with the policies of Imperial Germany. The political stakes are high indeed. As well as the issue of financial reparation, matters of national honor, political emotion, sovereignty, and territorial revision were thrown into the brew, guaranteeing that any explanation of the war's causes would upset some party. Some of the candidate ingredients for explaining the war date back to the wartime propaganda battle itself, and some are the stock of common memory. An archduke's assassination, the Habsburgs' empire's nationalities problem, German hubris, German paranoia, the nature of the alliance system, the collective mentality of Europe's political and diplomatic elites. One may pick and mix. As with most historiographical debates, this one goes round and round, with revisionism sparking counter-revisionism, and that neo-revisionism. The quality of the arguments is inconsistent, but the present discussion is more concerned with what all explanations of the First World War share. They have in common a sense that what they are trying to account for was undesirable, traumatic, catastrophic. One can, of course, have natural catastrophes, but the matters in question were distinctly human phenomena, resulting from human decisions. Some of the causes or origins of the war, to use the terms deployed in sundry book titles, inevitably indicate responsibility in the language of Article 231. Given the negative associations of the war, conclusions as to responsibility will be conclusions as to blame and guilt, whether or not their authors chose to deploy such terms. All that varies between accounts is who or what is to be blamed. The evaluative association is reflected in the etymology of cause. The ancient Greek aitium, which became causa in Latin, meant fault, blame, or accusation, as well as cause. In the explanation of wars and so much else, just as in detective novels, whodunit is at once a question about cause and guilt. Likewise, when we talk of revolution, we are apt to gesture at the weight and justness of revolutionary grievances, the governing regime's willingness to address grievances, or the proportionality of grievances to the violence of revolutionary action. The characterizations are infused with evaluative appraisal. Since historians today, as ever before, like to think of themselves as critical thinkers, it is of some interest that criticism derives from the Greek verb krino, which means to distinguish and discriminate, and also to decide and judge. Yet professional consensus today is against the argument of this book that it is legitimate, often unavoidable, and frequently important for the historian to make value judgments about things past. In the contemporary profession, critical thought tends to be conceived as thought that would be polluted by any evaluative element. The philosopher Michael Oakeshott mocked the idea of treating the past as a field in which we exercise our moral and political opinions, like whippets in a meadow on a Sunday afternoon. In somewhat higher diction, the great historian Mark Bloch scorned the urge to play the role of Minos or Osiris behind a desk. H.S. Commager enjoined